Chapter 25. Mason. Mason's heart thudded in his chest as he checked the time again. It was Friday evening, 4 days since Clara's injury, and the night he and Clara had decided to tell their parents about their rekindled relationship. They'd agreed to use his house since it was bigger, and so her father could see how well he was doing. "It will be okay," she said, coming up beside him and putting her arm through his. "The worst that will happen is that we have to kick them out." She issued an encouraging smile, and he patted her arm. While she was still sore, she was certainly moving around much better. They'd even gone earlier to get her a rental car, while her insurance company worked to get a refund issued to her for the loss of her car due to the accident. He was moving better as well, but the two of them certainly made a humorous pair, with his limping gait and her grimace of pain every time she laughed. "Let's hope it doesn't come to that," he said, just as the doorbell rang. He took a deep breath and pulled his shoulders back before stepping away from her and to the door. "Well, here we go." Mason opened the door to reveal his parents on the other side. "Mason!" his mother said, rushing forward to pull him into a hug. If she saw Clara, it didn't register at first. His father, however, clenched his jaw as he spied her. "What is this?" he asked, and the tone of his voice caused his mother to pull back and realize Mason was not alone. "What do you mean?" Mason asked sweetly. "This is me inviting you to dinner to meet my girlfriend." He held out his hand to Clara and pulled her close to him when she placed her hand in his. "Girlfriend?" His mother's hands flew to her mouth, and her wide eyes jumped between Mason and her husband. "But that's not possible." "You mean because you tried to keep us apart?" Mason was surprised at how calm and collected his voice sounded. His father opened his mouth as if he was going to protest, and then sighed. "It wasn't our idea." "But you still took the money," Mason said. "I can't believe you two would do that." "She's just as guilty," his mother said in a small voice. "She agreed to break up with you." "You're right. She did, but she was 17 and under the rule of her father. You two don't have an excuse." "We just wanted the best for you," his mother sobbed. "What is this?" The deep, demanding voice of Clara's father carried over the heads of Mason's parents. "So glad you could join us, Dad," Clara said, speaking up for the first time. "Why don't you all come inside?" Though it was evident from the expressions on their faces that coming inside was the last thing they wanted to do, they followed Clara into the living room and took a seat. His parents took the couch while her father took the chair farthest away. Mason almost chuckled at the hostility that still appeared to exist between them. "I'm going to ask you again, Clara. What is this?" Clara stepped closer to Mason and stared evenly at her father. "This is me, finally standing up for what I want, Dad. The job I took in Southlake is for the Texas Tornadoes, the same team that Mason plays for. Though you tried to tear us apart 6 years ago, God brought us back together. I know you thought you were doing what was best for me." She turned to look at his parents. "You all did, but you were wrong. Mason and I belong together, and while we hope you will accept our decision and put the past wrongs behind us, we will not be torn apart by you again." "You can't do this," her father said. "You're supposed to marry Joel, not a football player." "I don't love Joel, Dad. I never did. I love Mason, and I have since high school. I tried to put him out of my mind and do what you wanted, but I was miserable. I applied for the job to get away from you, to get away from Joel. I want you in my life, but you can't run it any longer." "The same goes for you two," Mason piped up, eyeing his parents. "I understand why you did what you did, but that doesn't make it right. Clara and I want a life with you in it, but only if you accept that what you did was wrong and promise never to try and tear us apart again." Silence filled the room as eyes exchanged glances. Mason tightened his grip on Clara and forced himself to wait. "You're right," his father said, finally breaking the silence. "We were wrong. Though we only wanted the best for you, we should have talked to you about it, instead of conspiring behind your back." He turned to Clara. "I hope you know that it wasn't that we didn't like you. We just didn't want anything to distract Mason from going pro." "Thank you, sir," Clara said. Her father cleared his throat. "I'm sorry, too. After your mother died, I just wanted the best for you, and I never thought Mason would make it to a point where he'd be able to take care of you." He turned to Mason. "I'm man enough to admit when I'm wrong. You've definitely defied the odds. And while I would prefer my daughter fall for someone with a more stable career, I won't hold her back from pursuing her dreams any longer." Mason nodded, though inside his heart was bursting with joy. He hadn't been sure what to expect when they'd planned this whole thing, but he should have known that if God could bring him and Clara together after so long, that he could thaw frozen hearts as well. After all, mending relationships was a big part of who he was. "I'm so glad to hear you say that, Dad," Clara said with a smile. "Well, since we've all decided to try being friends, who would like to join us for dinner?"